Welcome to Breaking Through Health Barriers. This is your host, Dr. Terry Wenner, bringing you education, motivation, and inspiration for healthy living. I'm an educator, a registered nurse, a podcaster, a blogger, and a video creator, and I'm so glad you decided to listen in today. In episode 12, we will be discussing mentoring from a health perspective, the health benefits of having non-emergency mindsets, and dealing with trust issues. So let's get started. Our first part today is a look at mentoring from a health perspective. I always like to start with a definition so we know what we're talking about. Mentorship is a relationship in which a more experienced or more knowledgeable person helps to guide a less experienced or less knowledgeable person. The mentor may be older or younger than the person being mentored, but he or she must have a certain area of expertise. It is a learning and development partnership between someone with vast experience and someone who wants to learn. And that's actually a Wikipedia definition. Although I'm not super fond of Wikipedia, I did find that definition really summed it up well. So let's continue to explore mentoring a little bit. Some of you may be very familiar with this topic already, and for some of you it might be a little bit newer. A question that often comes to mind is, where can mentoring occur? We frequently see mentoring in the business setting or other types of career-focused settings, but it's really not limited to those settings. Some workplaces may refer to it with slightly different terminology also. It can be called an apprenticeship, a preceptorship, or it may just happen and not be called anything at all. But as I said, it's not limited to the workplace. There are many places in the community that mentoring can occur as well. On a personal level, I've both been the giver and the receiver of mentoring. At times, it's been very formal, an arrangement, and at other times, it's been more spontaneous. There were instances where mentors were provided for me, and then there's other instances where I really searched out my own. In some cases, I've worked face-to-face with people, and in other places, it's been virtual, and some people I never even met virtually. That probably sounds a little confusing, so I think what we're going to do today is dig into that a little bit deeper. I'll give you some examples, and hopefully you'll understand what I'm talking about a little bit better, and eventually we're going to tie it into health. So mentoring others is a good place to start. I've been a nurse for over 25 years now, and I've had a lot of different jobs within that time. And I have to say, in each one of those phases of my career, I started out as a novice, somebody that was really in need of learning and growing. But as time went on, it usually took about 2 to 3 years, I became very proficient in those areas, and in certain cases, I would even consider myself an expert. And most of those experiences, I've been called to mentor other nurses that were new to that type of nursing, or at least new to the facility. So other people were the novice and I was the expert, and I was helping to bring them along. Now, most recently in my career, I worked the last 10 years as a university professor, and I often had adjunct instructors, which were part-time instructors that were hired for just one semester at a time, working under me. And I would have to say, just about every semester, I had at least one, if not more, brand new instructors. They were brand new to teaching, or at the very least, they were brand new to the university. And in either case, there was a lot of learning to be done. So what did I do to help mentor them? I found a very interesting list that was done by Aubrey, Bob, and Cohen. It's a pretty old list, 1995, but in this article, they talked about 5 common techniques that are used in mentoring, and I have to say, when I read over the list, I tended to agree that these things were very good techniques, and they made a lot of sense. So let's review them together and see what you think. The first one was called accompanying, making a care-based commitment to walking alongside a learner as they learn and grow. So that sounded like it made a lot of sense. You don't want to walk by yourself. You don't want to go through everything alone when you're new at something. It's great to have somebody who is willing to walk beside you. I know in my own experience, I had people that would often pick me up at my door of my office and say, "Come on, Tara, it's time to go to another meeting. You got to be over in this building. Follow me, I'll take you." And that made things so much better because I didn't have to worry about getting lost. I tend to be a little bit directionally impaired, and so I get lost very easily. So that was really wonderful for me. A second technique is called sowing, and this kind of makes a lot of sense, especially if you think of it in terms of growing plants. So planting seeds or sowing is very important early in the process, and at that beginning stage, people may not even understand what you're trying to teach them. They may not accept what you're saying, but you know as the mentor that it is things that they need to know for things that'll happen in the future. They're going to need it later on. So that sowing stage is very important, but guess what? You see absolutely no results at that stage. So you just have to do it knowing that the benefits will come later. This third tip I think is pretty interesting. It's called catalyzing. And this is when you get to the point in a learner's growth where it's time to speed up the process, almost give it like a little boost. And the learner is ready to make significant changes in either thinking or behavior at this point. So, okay, enough planting of seeds, let's go. We're gonna, boost this baby up and get moving. The next stage is very common to me as a nurse. It's called showing. And this is a technique where it's intended to help somebody understand things better. So it can involve giving an example. So when I taught students in the classroom, I was well known for giving lots of examples, telling stories of my own experience or trying to explain something in simple everyday terms. And that often was very helpful to students. Another thing that you can do in this showing technique is to demonstrate. Okay, so if you want to watch somebody bake a cake or something like that, you could watch them physically adding the ingredients together, mixing them, flouring the pan, greasing and flouring the pan, and baking that cake, So that's something that you could teach somebody by demonstration. And sometimes you just really need to show them what you're talking about. Like you've tried to explain it, it's not something that you can actually demonstrate, but you can show. Let me show you a video online. There's a procedure done in interventional radiology where they actually go inside blood vessels and break up blood clots. That's not something I can demonstrate in a classroom, and although I can explain it, you don't totally grasp what's going on. But when I showed that video, people would see that and be like, oh, that's what she was talking about, So that is another type of showing that can happen. That's part of the mentoring process. And then this last of the 5 common techniques used, it's called harvesting. Again, with that planting and growing theme. The last one is more reflective, and it involves asking the learner what they've learned. In a sense, it's like collecting ripe fruit. So what did you grow on your tree? Do you have red, juicy apples that are ready to pick? Do you have peaches that are ripened and ready to go? So with that harvesting stage, asking them, so what'd you learn today? I've been involved in training for a new job, orientation, and several times I've gotten sent out to visit clients in their homes with different staff members. One time I went with a home care nurse, one time I went with a hospice nurse, and another time I went with a social worker. Each time I did technically the same thing, but I was looking at it from a different aspect. I was enhancing my growth, and I could clearly say to someone, oh, we saw these kind of patients and I learned this, and it's very tangible. So that harvesting phase is cool because you get to see the results, you get to see the rewards of your hard work. I'm also an educator, so I do want to point out something here. Teaching, although it's similar to mentoring, is not exactly the same thing. Teaching often involves groups of students, anywhere from 4 or 5 to a larger group, 50 to 100, and it's usually limited to times when class is actually in session. So your class is scheduled Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 10 to 12. That's when learning occurs. So that is a limitation. And often it is only for a semester at a time. Although you may encounter a teacher more than once, it may only be the one semester. So with teaching, academic setting, it's very limited. It's not a one-on-one type of thing where that person is walking beside you, sowing seed, showing you things. knowing when it's time to catalyze your efforts and when to harvest the fruit is very different. So I do want to point that out. Mentoring does have an aspect of teaching in it. That's a very important aspect, but they are not exactly the same. So I mentioned, there are non-career mentoring opportunities as well, and I wanted to mention a few so you know what I'm talking about. There's organizations out there that actually encourage mentoring or are designed to allow that to occur. A few that you might have heard of, Big Sisters and Big Brothers. Those are situations where people are paired up. You get to have a big brother or a big sister, and maybe you didn't have one of those in your home, or maybe you didn't have a parent that was a real good model for you, wasn't available for you. That would be an awesome opportunity to get someone's perspective that's older and wiser than you. Many youth group situations, whether they are church related or community focused, they also provide mentoring opportunities. And then one that I've seen more recently is peer mentoring. And we like to do this in the college setting with like seniors, juniors, or seniors mentoring incoming freshmen or sophomores, and pairing people up that are in the same major and kind of helping them, show them the ropes a little bit. So those are also opportunities. Maybe you're not currently in the job market or looking for something in the job market to expand on, but there are plenty of opportunities in the non-career settings as well. So I'm going to talk next about receiving mentoring from others. I mentioned this already, but I've been both the giver and the recipient of mentoring. There was one time that I can recall when it was a formal relationship. I was assigned a specific person to be my mentor, and as luck would have it, she happened to be really good at it. She was available all the time. She was very knowledgeable. We got along very well. So it was a very productive relationship. However, that was not a guarantee. I wasn't involved in the selection process. It could have been someone that I didn't get along with well at all. And other employees in this same company, I could tell they were not as lucky or blessed as I was. They didn't get matched up with somebody that was a good fit for them. So, sometimes formal arrangements work out very well, and sometimes they don't work out well at all. You could see if you had someone that was really not available or not interested and they were forced to do it, that was not going to go very well. So, sometimes there are attempts to match people. They will look at different criteria about you. Other times there's really not that effort put in, and that can be problematic. As I was doing a little research for this topic, one thing I read about that seemed pretty interesting to me was something called speed mentoring. So probably most of you have heard of speed dating, where you go to an event where you are hoping to find someone that's suitable for a date, and you're given 5 to 10 minutes at each station, and you sit there and you ask a few questions for the prospective date, and you just bop seat to seat as the timer tells you to move. And at the end, you make notes, of who you might like to date and who you would not be interested in. And then from that point on, they try to match people. If a man and a woman, or if it's same-sex couples, if there's 2 men or 2 women that want to get together, they certainly will try to, make that happen so that you can go out on a date. Well, in the world of careers, they have something called speed mentoring. And that's a similar thing where you kind of are given 5 to 10 minutes to speak to each potential mentor. And at the end, you try to get a feel for which of those people was most like you. Who can you talk to easily? Who do you think you can really learn from and grow from? Certain personality types are not really suited for mentoring, so you get an opportunity in speed mentoring to figure out who might work for you. So I think there's a lot going on in the field of mentoring, and it's a very beneficial thing if it's a good match. So that was my example of formal mentoring, but there's been times in my life where I've had less formal or more spontaneous mentoring. And I want to tell you about a friend of mine who was a virtual mentor for me. Her name was Angel, and I met her during a time of my life and her life where neither of us were working outside the home very often. So we had a lot of time inside. We were home with children, or the children went to school, and we had some time in the house by ourselves. Angel had been maintaining a Christian women's website. She was posting information, making sure it was current, updated, running, those kind of things. Had a lot to do with HTML code and list subscriptions and different things like that. And I decided that I wanted to learn that. I've always had a love of technology, and I thought this would be a great opportunity. So even though I never met Angel in person once, we virtually met practically every day. I mean, it was practically a daily relationship. And she helped me learn what to do. If I didn't remember, she would tell me again. She showed me, we often would use, I believe it was called ICQ chat back then. And we would chat and we would, make decisions and progress together. And I really loved that relationship. It was very beneficial for me and her because we became friends in the process. I mean, we never met in person, but we did exchange Christmas and birthday cards. And I believe we even spoke on the phone once or twice. Very sadly, I learned several years ago that Angel had suddenly sort of disappeared from the online world, and I found out through another friend that Angel had developed a brain tumor, and she did pass away eventually. So it's a relationship that was very important to me. I'm glad to have known her virtually, and I do miss her from time to time. Another area of less formal mentoring that I want to talk about is when you actually start seeking out mentors. My example is that I've had a lot of mentoring done from authors, podcasters, and video creators. There were times when I felt a connection with someone, but I knew it was probably very unlikely that I'd ever meet them. And if I did meet them, they probably would not have time for a regular mentoring relationship with me. But that didn't mean that I couldn't learn from them, that they couldn't mentor me. So there have been several people over the years I've followed their blogs or read books that they've written, listened to their podcasts, or listened and watched their videos. And I've received regular communication from these high quality people with great information, and I learned tons. So even though that was a totally different kind of mentoring relationship, I truly valued them and found that they just really enhanced my life. And in a sense, that's what I hope to do for other people. I write blogs, I record podcasts, and I do videos, and I want to give back what people have given to me. And so although I may never meet many of you who are listening today, I hope that something that I say or do helps you move a little bit faster in your walk or move toward your goals a little bit more. Maybe you'll have a little bit more motivation or a little bit of encouragement that you didn't have otherwise. So, I follow these people and I learn from them in an academic or educational sense, a learning sense. And it's different from when you follow someone online for just pleasure reasons, So there's plenty of people online that I follow because they have cool pictures, their pics are pretty cool, or they post a lot of cute sayings, funny memes. So that is a different kind of learning and a different kind of fun. But it's different than what I'm talking about when I talk about, mentoring relationships that really help you learn and grow. So, not everybody wants those kind of relationships. There are some people that are like, dude, my tasty cakes and my TV is all I really need. I don't need to learn that stuff. I don't want to grow. I don't want to change. That's okay. The opportunity is there. You don't have to take it. You can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make them drink. That is okay. You're totally allowed to not want to learn and grow in life. But for me personally, I do want to learn. I do want to grow. I did back then, and I still do today. Okay, so that brings me to the mentoring health connection. So that was the whole point of this. And now I've talked about all types of things about mentoring, and I'm sure you're wondering what that connection is. Well, the connection is this. When we have a good mentoring relationship, life is better. When life is better, stress is less. We're happier. Our blood pressure is down. Our cortisone levels are down. Our mood is up. Our family's happier, and we whistle a happy tune. Life is just better when things are going well. Mentors help things go well. So when we don't have a good mentoring relationship, it's like trying to go up a creek without a paddle. Okay, that is not impossible, but it's more difficult than it needs to be. It's trying to write with your arms tied behind your back, or trying to shop without money or credit cards or debit cards. See, these things are not totally impossible. They're just sure as heck a lot harder than they need to be. So mentoring does help your health because of all those things I mentioned. When you have somebody walking alongside you, sowing seeds in your life, looking forward to the harvest that's going to come one day. It really makes a difference. So wrapping up this first section, I just have 4 mentoring tips for you. First of all, accept the challenge if you're ever asked to mentor someone, whether it's formally or spontaneously. Provided that you believe you have some skills that can actually help them or some knowledge, I encourage you to take that challenge on, because you can make a difference in someone's life. I know you can. Many people have made a difference in my life, and I hope I've made a difference in others as well. Mentoring tip number 2. When you are a mentor, remind yourself regularly that you're making someone's life better. You are making their health better every single time that you interact with them. So you're making someone's life and health better every time you interact with them. The third tip, don't shy away from asking others to mentor you or to accept someone who's formally assigned to be your mentor. So open the door for that. Allow that to come into your life. And number 4, if you can't find people who can meet your needs, then think outside the box. Find someone online. Find a great author and read everything they've ever written. If you haven't tried podcasts yet, this is the time. You should look into getting a podcatcher app and start catching some great information. Or if video is more your style, then you need to check out YouTube. Or if you can't find what you're looking for on YouTube, just start Googling videos that have to do with the topic you're interested in. And I guarantee you will find something that is related to your topic. And you can make connections with these individuals that create this material, and you will feel like you know them even if you haven't personally met them. Okay, moving on, we have Dr. Terry's health tip and challenge of the week. So I used to be a critical care nurse, and in that environment, emergencies were common. And the job of the nurse is to respond quickly to the emergency and fix it through some action. So you respond quickly and then act to fix the situation. That was a day in the life of a critical care nurse, right? So working in both intensive care and coronary care, they were all kinds of emergencies that I would see. We had clients whose heart stopped, or their blood pressure was critically low, or they suddenly went unconscious. Other examples are massive bleeding or hemorrhaging, sudden difficulty breathing, or uncontrolled seizures. So all of these things are true emergencies. They deserve attention right now. They can happen outside the hospital as well, and perhaps some of you have witnessed some of those things. That's when you call 911. So truly, these are emergent situations. When I first changed career paths though and went into academia, one of the first pieces of advice I was given is this: there are no emergencies in academia. So that kind of came as a shock to me. This wise colleague felt the need to say this to me, and it encouraged me to slow down, to think things through, and not feel like I had to provide an answer in the next 15 seconds, which is very different than critical care. 15 seconds might have been too long in critical care, but in academia, you got days, you got weeks, sometimes you got months to figure something out. So sometimes things could really wait till the morning or Monday or next week or several weeks from now, and that was okay. No one was going to die, no one was going to have a nervous breakdown, and everything would still be pretty cool. Okay, so what does this have to do with my challenge for you? I want you to think about situations that you have been in during the last week or so that have been very stressful. And then ask yourself if they required immediate attention and you gave it, or if it's something that really could have waited but you acted too quickly anyway. You felt the need to respond even though it could have waited. So you're looking for those situations where you felt pressured to have a response right now, but you really didn't need one. No one was going to die, no one was going to have a nervous breakdown, and everything was still going to be okay. So I want you to try to identify at least one of those instances. For some of you, it might come easier than others. If you can find one thing, then I want you to pledge that the next time that or something similar happens, you are not going to respond immediately. You're going to give yourself permission to delay your response. So here's, something that's a real sore spot for me, a personal example. I often get really stressed if I get a nasty email. somebody, is just jumping to conclusions, ripping me apart. Sometimes it's real, sometimes it's imagined, but, that really upsets me. And my critical care response is to email them right back within minutes and give them a piece of my mind and set them straight. But, that really never really gets me very far when I try to do that. I usually make things worse, or we go back and forth with 10 emails to each other, and nothing's resolved. But my non-emergency mindset tells me to wait to respond. I had another colleague that used the mnemonic WAIT, W-A-I-T, to say, why am I talking? So sometimes, we got things flowing out of our mouth. We don't need them to be flowing out of our mouth. We need to zip our lip. So waiting to respond is really a good thing sometimes. So sometimes I sleep on it. I'm not going to make a decision till the morning. Other times I might wait till Monday if it's Friday at 5 o'clock, which is usually when these things tend to happen. But, if I'm tempted to react badly, need time to think, or can't really put my thoughts together, I'm going to choose to wait. And I have to say, that was a little hard to get used to at first, but now I love it. I absolutely love it because I calm down. I come up with sometimes really much better responses than I would have if I did it right then. And a lot of times, time just kind of heals the problem and people's emotions calm down, things settle. So it can be really a beneficial thing. So that's my challenge for you this week. And our last section, part 2, dealing with trust issues. So, in order to function well in life, we have to trust in things and people around us. And, for those of you who believe in God, there are also spiritual trust issues as well. You need to believe in your Creator, for example, and that the Creator is doing things in your best interest. But I'm finding more and more that trust is disappearing from our world, and we trust less. And when we do trust, it's usually things instead of people. So that's crazy. Why would we trust things more than people? But let me give you a few examples and see what you think. So my first example, who trusts that the President of the United States is looking out for your best interest? Well, my guess is just based on the news lately that at least 50% of people listening right now would say that they don't trust him. They don't believe he is looking out for your best interests. Now, that's not everybody, but I'm saying that's probably about half. Second example, do you trust that difficulties in your life make you stronger? Well, when we're in the midst of those difficulties, we probably don't. A lot of times 20/20 vision and, the hindsight is 20/20 type of thing. We do tend to look back and say, wow, that was really a growing experience for me, but we don't trust it while it's going on. Or how about this? If you catch a family member or close friend in a lie or compromising position, do you stop trusting everything that they do? So, you made this one mistake and now I can't trust you at all. I just can't trust anything about you. Well, we sometimes see that happen, right? And my last example, how about if somebody tells you that they did the best they could and they're really sorry, but they still had to go through with certain actions, that they still had to let you go, or they still had to cut your hours back, or whatever. Does your cynical side kick in and you say to yourself, yeah, sure you really did your best, and sure you're really sorry? You're probably not the least bit sorry. Is that the kind of thing that goes on in your head? That is saying you don't trust people. You don't trust what they're saying. You don't trust what they're doing. You don't trust that life events are making you stronger. And you certainly don't trust the President of the United States, right? So these, obviously, they don't apply to everyone, but there are times when probably all 4 of these things can pop into your mind. Take the president example. The president changes every 4 to 8 years. So you might have felt really trusting in one, and then a couple years later, you don't trust the other one at all. So we see this happen a lot with political parties and, people shifting their loyalty and things like that. So, it's a lot of interesting stuff. So I imagine by this point, you understand what I'm trying to say. These trust issues are really eroding our society. But let's think about some trust in things as opposed to people. Do you trust that the toilet seat is going to hold you up when you go to use it? Or do you sit on the toilet seat, fearing your life that you're going to fall in? You probably trust the toilet seat. Do you trust that the gas you filled up your car with at the gas station is going to make your car run properly, that it's actually gasoline, and that it's going to, get you to work on time? Well, sure. Who thinks when they put gasoline in their car that they're putting something else? We just trust that it's gas. If it's labeled gas, we trust that it's gas. And here's one last one for you. Do you suspect that the milk that you purchased that has a use-by date that's 7 days in the future is going to taste good and not make you sick? Yeah, you don't stare at the milk bottle saying to yourself, wow, I wonder if this date's a lie. I wonder if they actually put vinegar in my milk. We don't say that kind of stuff. We just trust it. So we're trusting things more than people, and that just says a whole lot about society. Why is it that we trust in inanimate objects, policies, and procedures, but, we don't trust the bum on the street that says he's going to buy a sandwich with the $10 we just gave him? So why is that? Well, the reason is it's our experience. We've been burnt before, and we expect to get burnt again. When things have not worked out well before, we don't expect them to work out now. On the other hand, if they did work out well, so you had a really good experience with someone, they not only did what you thought they were going to do, but they did it better than you thought, then you have a positive relationship, a trust-growing relationship. So, like it or not, our experiences really do dictate our expectations. So where I want to go with this is overcoming a lack of trust. When we lack trust in people who are regularly involved in our life, it makes life so much more challenging. And it often does affect our health. Do you think your blood pressure and heart rate go down when you're concerned that your spouse is spending all the grocery money at the racetrack? Yeah, probably not. You owe it to yourself to deal with any lack of trust issues that you're experiencing. And I have 3 plan of attacks that you could possibly use if you do find that you're having some trust issues in your life. So my first approach is to deal with reality. There are people who regularly let us down, and they can't control it. So the kind of people I'm talking about are drug addicts, alcoholics, people with mental illness, those with brain disease like Alzheimer's and different types of dementia, and more. There's so many issues that can cause you to really not be able to control things. Well, you can probably bet that these people are going to let you down more than you can count on them, right? So accept that reality. You don't need to feel bad about this. This is not your problem. When someone is not able to control themselves, that is not your problem. As a nurse, I've had patients that have been going through drug and alcohol withdrawal, and they just cursed me out. I could remember full shifts where I was listening to cursing so bad that I was learning new curse words during my shift. I didn't get mad about it. I didn't take it personally. I just made sure that they couldn't hurt me or anybody else while they went through their detox. How do you do this when you're a nurse? You do this with medications. You do this through extra support staff. I've had patients that I've had a security guard in the room with me when I cared for them. And sometimes, unfortunately, we do physically restrain people too, because if you're going to punch yourself in the head, you're going to cause yourself damage. If you're going to punch me in the head, that's not going to be tolerated either. So there are times when the reality is this person cannot maintain control. I cannot trust them. So we need to make sure everybody stays safe. So, what we're not able to do in this situation is we're not going to get people to stop misbehaving. We're not going to get this drunk to stop cursing. We are not going to get the drug abuser to start, using money that we give them wisely. So why are we trying? It's ridiculous to try. If you have family members or friends that have some of these or other extenuating circumstances that leave them out of control, don't get mad about it, just deal with it. Okay? You're going to save yourself a whole lot of hassle if you just accept that at this time in their life, they cannot be trusted. It happens. It doesn't mean forever they won't be able to be trusted. It means today they cannot be trusted. Okay, the second approach is to accept the human factor. So as humans, we all make mistakes, and the list of reasons would go on and on and on. Here's a personal story for you. As a youth, I once tried to get out of a bowling alley without paying for the game I had bowled. Now, I had the money, but I just thought it would be cool to see if I could get away with this. Well, as it turned out, my friends and I were not successful with our attempts. They did come out in the parking lot and say, hey, did you forget to pay? So we paid and we didn't get in any serious trouble. But, did that all of a sudden make me untrustworthy for the rest of my life? No, I was a stupid youth learning an important life lesson. And believe me, I never tried to do that again. People can change, and they do change all the time. So we need to give people a break once in a while. Give a guy or a girl a second chance. Because they did something wrong once does not mean that they should be, tossed out forever. So accept the human factor and give people a second chance. And then the third and probably the hardest option is serious issues really need work. So they're not going to go away overnight. Everything is not black and white. You can't just quickly accept or deny somebody with the trust issues. There are those situations that we want to trust people, but we just don't know how yet. They've violated that trust. They've ruined that trust, and it needs to be rebuilt. But because of the nature of the relationship, it's worth it. It is worth the rebuilding. So how do you forgive and trust a wayward spouse? What about the child who stole all your money because they wanted to engage in some thrill-seeking moment they couldn't afford? Or what about the employee that had 15 reasons they couldn't get to work on time this year? And they all sounded pretty legit, but you just don't buy it. There are times when rebuilding trust is needed. So sometimes it may involve a professional counselor or a spiritual advisor. Other times it may just take setting some ground rules and seriously following through with the consequences. So here are a few examples that came to mind when I was thinking of this. So, take a listen and see if any of these would help build some of the trust issues that you're dealing with. Build them up. How about sharing online passwords with your significant others to ensure appropriate emails are being sent? Or blocking certain websites from accessing your home? Limiting funds that are available for personal use in the household. You have $40 that you could do whatever you want with this week. You could save it up if you're looking to buy something more expensive, but you can't go over $40. That's all you got. How about storing values somewhere else temporarily? If you're afraid people are going to run off with your jewels, maybe you need to store them in a safe or in someone else's home or in a bank safe or something like that temporarily. How about sharing phone records? That would certainly clear up any confusion about who you're calling. Or sharing purchase receipts. So those are some possibilities that may help you rebuild some trust. There's often other things too that we haven't even discussed today or haven't thought of that really will help build trust situations. Sometimes this is going to mean taking a risk though. But honestly, most of those risks are pretty minimal. So if somebody called somebody they weren't supposed to, what harm is done? Well, like I said, non-emergent, nobody died, nobody bled to death. No one had a nervous breakdown. You learn from that. If you take a risk and it didn't work out, you learn from that and you make a different decision in the future. There might be situations that are high risk. I'm gonna do this because I want to show that I trust you, but I'm not sure how it's going to work out. Well, if you try it and it doesn't work out, then you have to take more serious action next time. We tried this on our own, now we have to go get outside help, or you need to move out because you're not trustworthy in this house or whatever the situation may be. So, you may have a situation where someone does have to move into the non-trustworthy category. You have to deal with reality. But other times you may find, delightfully, that the trust is able to be rebuilt over time and you are able to move on and have a healthier, happier life. Okay, so just, a few reflection questions for you to think about. I certainly encourage you to post your responses online. The Facebook page is also available if you'd like to post there instead. Whichever you prefer is totally cool. So question number 1, have you ever been or had a mentor? And if so, how did it work out? Number 2, are you considering something an emergency that really can or should wait? And number 3, is a lack of trust messing with your life? If so, start thinking about how you can work on fixing it. So in wrapping up, just a reminder, podcast episodes are available for download on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play Music, Android, and RSS. And I encourage you to subscribe now so that you don't miss any episodes. And if you use iTunes or Stitcher Radio, we would love to have you write us a review, an honest review of your experience here. It helps spread the word about things that people might be interested in. And additionally, you can also find my weekly health mentoring moments on YouTube, the video channel. There's also Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, and Google Plus accounts that I have under the name Dr. Terry Wenner. If you like those, feel free to like, share, pin, or whatever strikes your fancy. This is Dr. Terry Wenner, and together we're going to break through as many health barriers as possible and live happier, healthier lives. Until next time, enjoy each and every day you're given.